Oh, like it's taking over.
I always zoom in, like, oh,
Taking over.
yeah,
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I just started teaching that song since I learned some nice little business company. Yeah. Right, but there's like.
Who's you in the night? What's can we go? Small and go about yeah, my name is Don Kier. I'm from White Earth Reservation. Do several different aspects for the reservation at one time as the agriculture and wetlands manager. So I know a lot about prairie restoration. My stepfather also runs a prairie restoration business. So I have the background in prairie. My predecessor was Don Goodwin's father, Everett Goodwin, and he's taught me a lot too along the way. So I had a few different PowerPoints for you guys, and I went through several versions. I didn't know if you were like just learning about prairie. I didn't know if you were actually restoring, which means you did some background history on that. I have a few little, I was looking over some of the recommendations like to the DNR, and some of them are things I necessarily wouldn't do in restoring prairie, but I also know, and I didn't check on a lot of the codes for the cities, because I know the cities, in the metro area do have different codes now about prairie restoration. And them are very small scale. If we got more people to do it, maybe we'd see a lot more happening. Vegetation is totally different. We have a few remnant pieces within the reservation that have never been plowed. And my favorite field I sat in for maybe 3 years and cataloged about 260 different species, never getting to the point where I thought it was complete. I fought for a long time with the reservation to stop development because, and I had to kind of put that in number value. We're looking at tens of millions of dollars in seed within this one little 5-acre plot. So I don't know, are you guys thinking about prairie restoration, or what do you want to know? Because I can go, I can start from the beginning. And we'll go from there. Look at a lot of the plants and stuff that go around and you see the trees, they're like the anchors of the soil, and you see that within their root system. Their root system, you know, goes far, reaches out many ways. But the root system only reaches 2 to 3 feet, you know, within the soil. It may have a taproot that goes a lot farther down. And you see that's why it's the anchor. Prairie, has a different function, and mostly it's water filtration. The prairie system, like a lot of different things, you can dig up some plants and go plant it in your yard. It doesn't necessarily work for prairie. Prairie on good years, maybe like this year, you know, some of it'll get 6-7 feet, some of it. But you don't see the root system, and the root system goes down 10 to 15 feet. And that's what that does. During nice years like this, you know, the taller plants survive, and, you know, the water goes up and down as need be. During drought seasons, a lot of the shorter species will grow and they'll pull water up from the ground. During wet seasons where we have a lot of flooding, then prairies, then taller plants will flourish again and they'll pull that water down. And throughout all this, these plants actually go through and will filter our water. So they'll take highly polluted water, fix all them chemicals, boom, your water is clean again. So we're looking at a lot of agriculture in our area, and that's kind of the big thing. If we could get some of these these bigger ones, to just buffer their fields, especially down the Mississippi, we'd save a lot of soil, a lot of chemical runoff, everything else that goes on, you know. The insects within a prairie species, oh my goodness, totally, completely different. There won't be a mosquito on a prairie. And that's just because the bird species and other things, you know, but as soon as you hit, you know, the tree line, you'll get attacked. But within a prairie system, no mosquitoes, and the insects are by far the most beautiful species I've ever seen. Which also brings in the birds and different other things. So going through with prairie restoration, and it's nice to have them yards, because you can have flowers that bloom from the very beginning when there may be a snowbank there till well beyond frost. And there are several species that are common in a lot of areas. And for us, mostly, I'm an Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, we're kind of on the fringes of that prairie. White Earth, we have 3 distinct biomes, you know. To the west we have some of the best farming fields, you know, that's part of the Red River Valley, which was once all prairie. The east side was all timber at one time. The middle part was a lot of wetlands and mix. So we have the benefit of having some prairies still there. Although my reservation, we own roughly 13% of our land base within the exterior boundaries of the reservation. So we have different problems there. We have private landowners, state landowners, federal landowners, plus ourselves. So restoring prairie is kind of time consuming. You're not going to be an overnight job ever. I mean, it depends on if you're starting from a yard to a field to taking over like an agricultural field. Normally I don't like to disc. It's nice to get a lot of our our plants are different. Like sometimes it takes certain plants, they have to establish their root system before they grow. So it could be 7 years before you actually see some plants bloom. Some of them bloom right away. Some of them need to freeze so many days, you know, below -30. Yeah, some of them need to go through a bird system to actually, so like, you know, some seeds, sandpaper or scratch, you know. And it's just different. You have to do a lot of background on what you want to do. I know the Farm Service Agency has the CRP program. And that's for lack of a better word, like a bastard prairie. You know? The basic is, I think, 7 species, 3 need to be grasses. So, and that's that, if you're looking for an overall healthy piece of land, that's a good start, and you always can keep adding through as you see fit. Field preparation, a lot of burning. I don't understand how the city, you know, the metro area does, you know, manages their prairie, because a prairie is fire dependent. Whether it's established or not, that does need an occasional burn at least every 4 years. If you're just starting to establish prairie, a burn every year is something really good. And it just takes care of all the weeds. You know, the later you burn, the more of the weeds that you're gonna get rid of on a good basis. You don't want to go through and spray that affects a prairie big time. You know, some of them are able to handle that. Like I said, they'll fix out them chemicals, but you don't know if that's gonna ruin your viable seed or not. So, yeah, I should have brought some. For us, mostly prairie is a lot of medicine. We use a lot of I've been running through and picking a lot of different medicines for my tobacco mix. For our neighbors, the Dakota, they use that as a big food source, but they were garden growers as well. But the soil content in a prairie is also unbelievable. Like, you know, the plowing of all the prairies within the United States was a big factor in like the Dust Bowl. And then times, you know, they gave that buffer up, and, you know, like I said, during the drought years, some shorter plants will prevail, but they also suck the water up. Without any of them plants, we're just dust. Now, and nowadays we're going through, whether we like to admit it or not, we're going through the climate change. I watched the news this morning for the first time in weeks, and they talk about record-setting 130-degree temperatures in Death Valley possible today. Where I'm from, we've been in the 70s for about a week and a half, you know, like that's kind of cold for us, you know. We're used to, we get up in the hundreds, and we haven't seen that. It's pretty cold. Helps other things, so you don't have to run the air conditioner and all that. We're still humid, so everything's still kind of soggy all the time, but so, you know, just looking at a large scale, if we had, okay, let's say everybody in this room devoted 10% of their land to native prairie, we might kind of offset some of that stuff, you know. Them are big changes. I know historically, I come from Mahnomen County, which is monetary wise the poorest county in the Minnesota, but we at one time were 85% wetland. So we created our own weather within that own system. So, but now, you know, agriculture, a lot of it's drain tiled and whatnot. We go through, and now we're just like everybody else. We're depending on the West to bring us our weather. So we don't see a lot of them normal, what would be normal, you know, you looking over geological time, you know, we don't see a lot of them storm systems and rains that we used to have. But prairie, and I kind of went through some of that stuff for filtration. A lot of them systems are unknown. They don't know what they do. A lot of our native plants can go through and fixate a lot of the chemicals. There's studies, even wild rice can go through and fixate wild rice that has grown in some of the worst polluted waters, which is kind of, it doesn't like to do that. But the rice comes out and it doesn't show any signs of them chemicals being present. So there's a lot of chemical reaction within them systems. And how do we'll never know. I don't need to know. I just know that it works, you know. Sometimes we don't need to know the process, but we need to know the end result. So Prairie is a big thing. I'm not sure if any of you have any specific questions.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you like questions, so.
I love questions.
Okay.
It makes it flow a lot easier.
Great, yeah, sometimes just talking out was hard, okay. Well, this isn't exactly that question, but you mentioned some medicine from the prairie that you mix in with your tobacco, and I've studied some of those. I'm just curious what you like mix in. What plants call to you?
There's a lot of the really easy ones, the bee balm and the hyssop,
Yeah.
and
One,
anise, yeah, the mullein, like a lot of the plants that culture says are weeds,
right,
really medicine plants for
Yeah.
us. So them are just two of the really easy ones that go in, but we have a lot of different ones that we use, you know, for food, Jerusalem artichoke, we have ground plums found in whiter, the sweetgrass, and then all of the teas too that grow. We have several different tea species, the mountain mint, pennyroyal, and not only is that a medicine, it's also a tea.
Okay.
But I don't suggest, you know, without private consultation, because there are, you know, implications, you know, especially if a woman is pregnant or breastfeeding. Yeah. So them are on personal basis if you want to use some of them plants. You know, if you're not familiar with what you're making or what you're doing, you know, there are some implications, and that's just to ensure health of everybody.
You mentioned in general terms, and I think it was in context with the program that wasn't quite up to snuff. So in general terms, you talked about the do's and the don'ts, the things that you maybe wouldn't do. Do you want to be a little more specific about some of that?
A lot of it, like the bigger, like, okay, if you're taking over an agricultural field, a lot of them will tell you to just get up, get it ready and have a cover crop and this and that. You know, we have different machinery now that'll actually drill your seeds into the ground. A lot of the other things that they say, they suggest is traffic, you know, once your prairie is established. And I understand why they say that. Because usually, okay, let's say ATV runs through your field. You don't know where that ATV has been, and it might have weed seeds on there. But if your prairie is healthy, then weed seeds won't sprout. They make sure everything that shouldn't be there doesn't go in there. But at the same time, why I say that's not really something I would practice is these lands are made for buffalo to graze on, you know. What did they do? They didn't walk very lightly. Even if they tried, they're not, you know. So, and sometimes they're dependent on that too. You know, different species will come up as if it was to get stomped by like bison herd. Then you see a different bloom, and every year it's never going to be the same every year. Unless you go with the 7 species, you know, and yeah. So, and it's more or less weather dependent once you get a healthy prairie going. And if someone was to establish a prairie, that's going to be your #1 goal. Like it runs your life, because you start realizing all the plants, and the plants call to you, and then you want to learn more plants, and you want to, you know, and when you get that more mix, you know, like if we get a wet year and you see all these beautiful flowers like Joe Pye weed and things like that, and you're like, wow, but then the next year is really dry and you see a lot of the purple prairie clovers and different things like that. So it's different, you know. And then like the ones I mentioned for the tobacco mix, them are really generalized plants that you can find in a whole big variety area, bountiful, even on roadsides, you know. Yeah, so, and then you have the sage and everything else that grows in there. Some of the wetlands may have sweetgrass, and we get a lot of our typical medicines from there.
where do you get the seeds to start such a thing? I have a little patch of grass. My neighbor just had their roof replaced, and like what little grass was there just got killed.
killed.
And I was like, maybe that would be the patch, that we could start.
It could be, a lot of times, I know there's a lot of different areas and they tell you not to pick, but this
Okay.
is where I say is a very good place to pick.
Okay,
You start looking out, like that hyssop I said,
yeah,
it's flowering now, but in a couple weeks you'll be able to shake the seeds out of it without harming the plant at all.
yeah,
That's a,
doing some restoration and I live along Powderboard and it stops blooming there, so.
yeah.
It's only a few feet away, I have to bring it home.
Yeah, like a lot of the grasses, usually late season, they get theirs, if you want the beauty, it's more of the flower systems,
Yeah.
A lot of the things that don't get restored, that they forget about is the little blue stem or the buffalo grass, and that was a major component of buffalo feed. When they just lived and roamed on the prairie. It wasn't the big, tall, big blue stem. It was the short little blue, they call it, or buffalo grass. And when they seed out, their seed heads get nice and fluffy. So you see them little fluffy things on a tuft of grass. That's what they want. So if you wanted like to keep it true to a prairie, that was the major component of buffalo feed, was that grass.
So you're saying go visit a prairie and ask for the seed.
Yeah.
There's a prairie, they have a prairie case just off of, it's in St. Paul.
I'm not familiar with St. Paul. I do know a little bit about Minneapolis. Yeah.
So, Street.
And that's kind of what I do with Google it is,
There is a prairie place here.
I'm in the country, so I have we have several different prairies, and like I said, my stepfather grows prairie seed for market. He doesn't just sell you like a pound though.
Yeah,
He sells a whole lot and he's also doing, restoration, talks here coming up also. And that's kind of what he does, his business, and they're retired.
large amounts.
Large amounts. Yeah, and then he also handpicks certain species to go in there. And then he combines certain species, so you also can go through and combine. And get the mix. You're just gonna end up with a lot of the later stuff, the seeds for the later stuff. You do almost have to pick like your earlier, like the past flower. What else is early? The prairie smoke. You have to hand pick them, and it's best to throw them in your soil and just kind of, and pat it down. In the fall time, so they do their thing over the winter, and come springtime, you have more of a chance of them coming up. And if you have a lot of weeds, and I don't see, this is where I wanted to do more research, is for the metro area. I don't know about the fire part of it, because I said fire is a big thing, and it's an easier way to eliminate weeds and stuff. If you burn something, let's say you have a lot of weeds in your field. You want to burn it later in the spring after green up, because you still have duct under there. You want to burn it then, and it'll eliminate the weeds, but then it also helps that prairie to establish. They need a lot of that too. I'm assuming the ash and everything else to get that.
Related to that, I was curious, I do well with like kind of like more larger context, and so when you're caring for a prairie over a seasonal cycle, what does that cycle look like? And then you kind of answered that, like when would you burn, or what's an example of like, well, for this kind of field?
Well, if you, like I said, when you're just establishing, you always have them unwanted plants, or and as time goes on, them unwanted plants fall out. But usually when you have a lot of them weeds in there, you want to burn. And then you want to time your burns different. You'd burn every year until your prairie's established. And the timing of them burns would switch from year to year.
Got it, depending on what's growing.
Yeah, depending on what's growing, I would start out as early as you can, and then the next year you want to go a few weeks to later, and then just keep doing that, staggering it, and eventually all of them will go out. And you might even want to go back to the beginning, after you see what's coming up. So you kind of have to be a plant novice to do this prairie stuff. It's not just go throw it in the ground and I'm gonna leave it alone and it's gonna grow and I'll be fine. To get it established takes kind of, some years, sometimes 7 years. You're not, you can buy plugs for some of the more common plants. And that helps too, but normally this is like a 3 to 7 year project, 3 years if you're adamant about all the work you're putting into it. 7 years if you're just kind of, well, let's see what it does, like. And I'm a busy person, so, nowadays even thinking about talking about prairie and then I gotta talk about the trees, cause I'm more of a whole system sort of person, so. There's different reasons to, we need them trees, we need them prairies, United States is hurting right now, so prairie would be one of the greatest things we could do for our land. And this area once was all, it was once was prairie. It wants prairie back, and eventually over time, you might see differences, just being in this area, different plants that may have been dormant for 10, 20, 50 years might pop up and you're like, oh, where'd that come from? And that's because them seeds are in the soil somewhere. So,
Savannas.
yeah. You have your oak savannas, you have your lowlands, you have your uplands, and them species are all gonna be a little bit different. If you're going out and just broadcasting seed, then plants will figure out their own area. But like I said, that's an overtime situation. If you want to actually plant for the areas found in what you're restoring, the lowland plants or the wetland plants, you'd want to plant there. The uplands, you'd want to plant different ones there, just so you get them site specific within your own site, so. But there are seed dealers out there. There are a lot of, not them big ag that sell that mix. You can find, like my stepfather,
Yeah.
and visit, visit with them people. When they get a feel for you and what you're doing, sometimes maybe they'll gift you a couple pounds of seeds. Sometimes I'll just sell you 10 pounds and you can see what you can do with it, different things. Whereas most of them are like, I'm selling the whole lot, they might just give you. So it's always good to visit with other prairie people, plant people always want to share plants with other people. No matter what you're growing.
You wanna talk about plants?
Yeah, talk about plants and then you're there 3 hours and you're like, oh yeah, well, what did I come here for? But yeah, then things always go a long ways, It used to be really hard for me to come and start talking to people, and I made it kind of a challenge to be okay to speak to people I've never met before, and now just in little simple conversations end up being really, really big benefits, and that goes a long way with the plant community. Everybody loves plants. When you love plants, and wow, then your eyes open up and boom, you got so much out there, and you may know some super rare species. I've helped different agencies find plants that were about to go on the endangered list, and we have some of them plants in my area. And I've always we used to have a lot of little agriculture fields, like I said, we only own 13% of our land. So we'd have a 10 acre here, 15 acre here, 9 acre here. So I just go through, we put some of them generic mixes down. And I'd take, each one of our communities has a little native prairie remnant, and I would just specify them different pieces. So all of White Earth would go here, all of Natal should go here, all of the ranch should go here. We have them areas, and beyond money valuable, very important plant species. And not only that, like it said, the insects that come along with it, and then you have the birds that come along with that, and then you have whatever eats the birds, and you just end up with a totally different ecosystem, you know. I've seen that, I love that video about the wolves in Montana. They put the wolves in, which chased out the deer out of certain areas, which made the prairie come back, which made different birds come back, which totally made a different habitat, and it actually increased their diversity by adding predator into that system. So there's a lot of different things, you know, plants run a lot of things.
I just wanted to mention, I wanted to go check a student out over there, so I wanted just, so you guys heard, my last lesson, with my dad was, the railroad grade. Because it hadn't been disturbed for so long. So
Oh, yeah.
could be dangerous, so, yeah, but that was one thing, that was my last lesson. Took me by a field, keep your eyes on this field here, this farmer, he keeps gaining acreage every year he cuts it. So, yeah,
So finding prairie along the railroad is what you're saying?
well, yeah, old
Yeah.
plants,
Yeah, yeah.
what, you know, what's gonna come up,
Yeah.
because it hadn't been disturbed for
Yeah.
so long.
Yeah, that's.
I could have asked that in a question, but.
No, that's fine, that's
I'm like,
fine, yeah.
oh, I have to do that.
Well, we find undisturbed, very few undisturbed places and,
Yeah.
you know, free seed bank, you know. And I try to be really ecological, you know, I try to walk lightly. So I understand about the weeds and all that, but like I said, if you have a well-established prairie, the weeds are, even if you walked in there and your boots were full of knapweed seeds, most likely them aren't gonna penetrate because that system is healthy and functioning the way it's at. And it's not gonna allow something in there that's like invasive.
I have a question about farmers buffering their fields with prairie. And I'm trying to wrap my mind around mostly how you could do a controlled burn around the edges of a,
You
The
could
complementary.
before, like right after they seed,
oh.
right after they
Mhm.
seed, then they could burn, so it wouldn't damage their crops also.
Mhm.
There are also some species that are tougher than others, you know, because farmers usually spray.
Right, and yeah.
And there are some prairies that, it doesn't really, as long as it's not a direct spray on them, they can handle that.
Yeah.
There are some tougher species, you know, the more rare ones are gonna be the more gentle and they absolutely need some specific, you know, no inputs for it to grow and flourish.
If I could
Mhm.
springboard off here, for me, what that comment did was made me think about policy. Made me think about Minnesota state senators, made me think about you know, back when I was growing up, that's some time ago now. There was that conservation program that kept some wind, right, the wind and the snow, the trees, the little wildlife buffers is what they called them. And I've been watching over the years that shrink and then disappear. So for me, my brain went, I wonder who might be inspired to work with state senators and
It'd be a great.
congressional people to make policy to say, well, let's bring some of that back, but maybe it could look like prairie.
And it would be
And
nice,
trees.
they have, you know,
Get to your state senators. That's your guys' government. That's, so like sorry if I could, frame of reference, treaty people, right? Because treaty is the mechanism for all of us to get along. And we each have responsibilities in that. So that might be a cool way to exercise treaty responsibility, is finding some folks and then getting with your state senators. Thank you, rant done.
but that also goes to show, you know, big farm has some lobbyists that say, we want all of them acres for production.
Yeah.
But then we have sugar beets, like I said, in our area, where they only need X amount of acreage. So if they're over acreage on sugar beets, they plow them right up. So in excess, we're, as Americans, everybody's in excess of everything, It doesn't seem like in excess of a lot of the good things, so. But yeah,
And we can start to tip that.
yeah, we
We
could, if we look at, it is what's making the best headway is our policymakers. Do we know a state senator? Do we know a state representative? Start, your county boards. Be aware of what's going on your county boards even. Like I come from, what I said, monetary wise, the poorest county in the state. Are we going to the county boards and saying, well, we want to invest in our natural, our nature, we're not making any money this way, well, why aren't we making money that way? We used to help, my program even, we used to help farmers located within the reservation boundaries even. We'd go through and it's really hard for me now, we'd have to mow down certain areas, but I use a lot of the things we mow down for medicine, so, like a lot of the willow, but them are natural. Them are natural plants and they were in some spaces, a dominant species in certain sites, them are really needed. It's all about the equality, we're all trying to push for equality, But no one talks to the plants. You are?
Yeah. I'm not typically an optimistic person, I'm opposite of that. But I really am like I've seen around, maybe it's the park board, but like all the Minneapolis parks
Yeah.
are starting to have the prairie restoration or like native land restoration around the lakes, and that's been such a beautiful thing to see. And I don't know how that happened, but just like praise for that.
It's been like 10-15 years and I started seeing more and more
Yeah.
little yards tuning into us.
Yeah,
Whoa,
yeah.
where'd that come from, and
The
you'd see it.
long-term relationship.
Yeah, and I would love to see like the long-term effects on a lot of the water systems within the
Yeah.
metro area.
Yeah, right, like less of our lakes closing down for E. coli, that would be beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Or even
Swim in them all year, wouldn't that be nice? Well,
Yeah.
not all year. Well,
some people do the polar plunge, I guess. But,
Yeah. Yeah,
but we have lakes back home that have a lot of, inputs, people inputs in.
Mhm.
And you see over time, we might start out at a certain lake in the beginning of the year. But by July 1st,
Right,
I don't take my kids there to swim anymore.
Yeah.
And that's, swimmer's itch, and that swimmer's itch is found in every lake. It just depends on how warm your lake
Mhm.
water gets, and the more eutrophication you have in your lake system, the more swimmer's itch is gonna be prevalent, And that also leads to your heating of the lakes a lot faster too, so. And that's what the swimmer's itch needs to grow and be prolific is the warming of the water, and then their breeding systems take over and they're found everywhere in the water.
and I also, I don't mean to, I'm asking a lot of
You're
questions, but if anybody else, anyway, can you talk a little bit about how you do your burns? Like, do you do like the torch or like, how do you do
You
that?
can use a torch, when I worked for the tribe, we actually had a tribal forestry department, so they did most of our burns, but they use a drip torch. Just like they would, when they go fight fire,
Oh.
when they do the back burns or whatever. Yeah, I have family that does that, they're smoke jumpers and everything, so I kind of got a well-rounded education. Yeah, I often talk about, I went for a BS in environmental studies, so. went for my master in the school of hard knocks. And now I'm going for my PhD, my doctorate in Anishinaabe University. So I have a well-rounded education in a lot of different things, but yeah, I'm focusing mainly on the benefits and what we can do to help, you know. Now I'm into water, you know, and how can we help the water? And it's not like I don't do that for money anymore, you know, but how can I help the water? Because, and if I'm helping the water, I'm helping it not only for you, my family, but you and your family. And even some people that you would call maybe opponents, you know.
Right.
That's for their benefit as well. So, yeah. Anything else? I think we're kind of timelines.
Oh, wow.
So thank you, everybody, for listening to me. I hope I give you a little bit of something and
Yeah.
you good, Shmew? If anybody ever wants to talk Prairie, I love plants. So
Yeah.
I'm like total plant nerd, you know?
Yeah.
All day long.
Yeah, yeah, so I think,
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we have a Prairie visit?
oh, yes, I love that. Yeah, we have lots of, like I said, I've taken him to a few of my spots. Mostly to pick medicine, but I mean, like. Anytime I get to show up.
Yeah.
Add that into the, right, so we did that, that gathering for Mississippi, the Prairie for Mississippi, and we had events set up for that. We could add you in the church of Prairie, we didn't have to just be a toxic, we can see the website.
Yeah, I mean,
That
you know,
actually, it's always good to have a little piece or a little folder.
Well, that, yes,
The vision.
exactly, I heard that from you.
yeah. Yeah, and like we have them little pieces all over, like she said, a lot of the railroads. You know, when you're traveling long distances, that's where you see a lot of the current.
I grew up playing in the woods and got into the railroad, that's where I met a lot of the plants and then the sting warrens and stuff, so. Yeah, when they said that, I was like, yeah, that's exactly where we collect our plants and stuff.
Yeah, and right now I'm at a different stage of my life, like I said, and I'm looking at the whole, trying to teach people about, native foods, gathering and harvesting your native foods and medicines, you know, in the traditional Ojibwe calendar, so. So now I look at every, you know, water is the main thing, and then we also have the forest, we have maple syrup, we have wild grapes. And then everything in the middle, there are the two major components to the Ojibwe calendar.
Yeah. Rice and season, and sugar.
Well, living season.
If the ferry misses the buffalo, and it would be possible that would come through, because I know there are people that raise buffalo and use it.
I know, and they make the buffalo eat like alfalfa, I'm like,
Is it anything to do with
No.
and it probably tastes just like a cow because of what they eat.
No, and lots of.
Okay, yeah,
I said I was.
I have very.
Okay, cool.
Literally,
I don't know if it is like, but.
Not actually like.
And sometimes, you know, a lot of doing stuff for art and get the bird done, so I worked for a tribe and that was part of our, having like, my people. In general, it's fire control. Not the brushing, woods most, but the brushing and took care of a lot of, not only the underbrush. You know, so, and that's what a lot of trees need.
On the back of the place, they would.
Yeah, we hear a lot of fire, and that was one of the things that let me, you know.
Like they.
I know. You know what?
Great.
Yeah. I was like.
Vaccine around the table.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why they don't do
Yeah.
I've lived there for like 3 years now. I'm also like, there's some of the plants that I look at them, I'm like, I don't think they'll actually need on Prairie.
And that finally for us, you know, there were times when we didn't make.
Going just like spread out.
Yeah, like a building.
Stanley on the fire.
Okay.
You didn't like home there. Sometimes.
I also learned like this so good about it. Yeah. No. Okay. Okay. Yeah, this looks.
What is it? What were you thinking? She was outside.
Oh, it's fine.
But we want to go silent.
Yeah, Jen is at the nearby at the Lutheran. Jane is at the first. Okay, yeah. We went to the night swim that Jen's. Yes. Oh my gosh. Definitely. I think that was all concerts you went to the mind. I'll sing above you. Like angel.
Like it was.
No, it was sad that Jen left, you know. And then I just like, here's
I don't know if I give you a, I give you a.
Is this right?
They're doing great.
Thanks.
I just think they're doing fine. You don't think that I can move around, you know. Last year. Yeah, that's what. So you're still left.
Oh, am I feet allowed?
Pretty awesome.
Great, we can move around and get more seats.
Yeah, yeah, the people that.
I don't like
that's
the
the people- They're like, you're not getting your. Yeah, there was.
Rich for like 6 nights. Over
I don't know if people need, you know, like, really. We want. Maybe I didn't send them.
Yeah. He's already here.
Yeah. So there's- Oh, really?
Something while they do.
That would be great.
As we get settled, one thing I will, ask everyone,
Nice to meet you.
there are
Okay,
washcloths
I saw you were.
at the start of this table, and if you'd like to take a washcloth, they've been blessed in water from the Mississippi, which happily happens to be the tap water from this building. All the water in this building comes from Mississippi, which is to say it's been treated and you won't get E. coli. But those have been blessed cloths. You're welcome to wash your hands with one, put it in the used bucket, and it's a way to begin to build our connection with sacred water as we are together. So it's an opt-in, but you're welcome to do it if you need. Hi, welcome. Feel free to grab a chair. You don't have to sit, you don't have to sit in a chair. So if you'd like to be on the ground or standing, that's also great. And we'll get started in just a couple minutes.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, we got a couple of nights. Yeah.
Come on, and I'll see if we can put these around. Take a few.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there are extra questions over here. You can have more than one if you want.
Well, not if someone else is.
There's a bunch that's even extra.
Yeah, it's like.
Yes.
So now we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to sit.
I was saying that. I might not.
Great. We are gonna get it started in about a minute ago, so I welcome you to find a place to be. You know.
A lot of mail-ins, like, taking in classes.
Maybe it's left.
It was funny,
I have a full copy.
I.
Welcome, everybody. To this drafting, mapping, relationship with Mississippi workshops. You raise your hand, you can hear me. Can you hear me through my mask?
It's a little loud.
Okay, I will project it if I'm too loud, also let me know. My name is Lux. I use they and he pronouns, and I'm a student at United in the Eco Justice program. There's a bachelor's degree specifically in Eco Justice here. And I'm also leading this workshop because I have spent most of my life living in Mississippi's watershed. Not all of it, but most of it. I grew up in St. Paul, what is now known as St. Paul, an unceded Dakota territory, and I live in Minneapolis. And I'm so glad we're all here together today. So the goal of this workshop is to use our hands, our senses, our bodies, and to create some art to help us gain new insight, explore what our connection is with Mississippi and the broader watershed that we live in. So I hope you leave feeling inspired and curious and more connected both to the water system and maybe to each other here. I'm going to talk for a couple more minutes. We'll go through some basic orientations like what art materials are there? What could I do? We'll do a little brainstorming together, and then you're free to make art in whatever way you'd like to. And that includes rejecting all materials provided you and choosing to create a song or a poem or any other thing. Before I start doing a little more orienting info, are there any questions? Everyone know where the bathrooms are in this building? Bathrooms, okay, over there. You're welcome to get water. So let's do some intros. I'd love everyone to have an opportunity to speak their name into the space. If you don't want to, you can say Pat, so you can just cross your arms in front of your body. And we'll do names, pronouns if you'd like, and a word that describes your mood right now in the first. So I'll start and then we'll go clockwise around the room. My name is Lux. I use they and he pronouns and I feel pretty jazzed.
I'm Anna, I use she, her pronouns, and I feel hungry, some feedback or. My name is Pam, like pandemonium, and my pronouns are they, them, or he, and a feeling.
A mood.
A mood, a mood, fluid. I'm Rebecca, also known as RJ. I use they, them. I'm holding. I'm Amanda, use she and they pronouns. Combo of like a little sleepy, but excited to do something with my hands too.
I'm Andy, I use he, him pronouns, and I would say wired.
I'm Ellen, I use she, her. My little grandbaby's in the hospital, so I'm feeling worried and getting lots of updates. I may have to leave. Thank you.
I'm Rachel, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm feeling excited.
I'm Amy Goodwin. I also use she, her, and I feel energized.
Cindy Beth Johnson, she, her, and I'm excited.
Melissa, she, her, I feel seen. Pam, she, her, anticipatory.
Sue, she, her, and peaceful.
Lori, and I am feeling here. I'm Amy, I use she, her pronouns, and I am feeling a little sleepy. I'm Lainey, she, her, and I'm feeling relaxed, feeling.
Lincoln, he, they. I don't have a word, but like a gesture, and it's kind of this like. Zara, they, them are my pronouns. And curious.
Linnea, she, her, and Sunny with the clouds.
Thank you all so much for being here. Oh,
Joe, they, them, grateful.
thank you for being here today. I will orientation to all the materials that we have, and then we'll do a little bit of brainstorming together, so we can inspire creative pieces together, and then you all will be looped upon the creative project. So what we have some of it's on here, there's cardboard, there's paper, construction paper, there's cardstock, there's colored paper, there are magazines that you're welcome to cut up. In terms of adhesives, you can't see them yet, but there are even glue guns. There's Mod Podge, there's Elmer's glue. We have colored pencils and scissors and watercolors. If you'd like to do watercolors, we have watercolors. So you're welcome to move around the room and kind of search around. There's also fabrics. You probably want to use a glue gun for them. Are there any questions? Yeah.
I hijack this a little bit.
Yeah.
I am also an artist here today with a community art piece. If you'd like to participate in it, the instructions and info are over there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for being here. And for sharing that with all of us.
Beautiful. And then still the box, there's some of the silks, but then I moved the box, so.
Yeah, and those are welcome to be ripped and cut in whatever way that you like.
I'm also an artist this afternoon at Hidden Falls, so I hope to continue creating with you ladies.
So I have a really broad question for all of us, and I think we can throw out some answers together that can start to think about where we are and where Mississippi is in our lives, and even relative to where we are in the state. So the question is, where is Mississippi? And you can raise your hand or just speak out and answer. There are lots of right answers. Oh, that way. How far away do you think?
2 miles. 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 2 miles
Fair. I think it's like half a mile. The main channel of the river is about half a mile southeast from the community.
Also in the faucet, like you said, and the toilet.
Oh.
Right here in our bodies, we're drinking it.
Okay, in my heart.
How many miles long is it? I bet you know less. You studied it.
Ooh, I know it's about half the size of the Amazon. And by distance, well, Mississippi's watershed holds fourth largest in the world, which is on Cowles. It's something like 1.2 million miles.
Oh, wow.
And that may include some of the tributaries, but actually, the Missouri River is about 100 miles longer than Mississippi, but the Missouri is the western tributary.
Yeah.
But the watershed itself includes 40% of the land of the continental United States, so it's a huge amount of space that is draining into the Mississippi, which is then draining into the Gulf.
I think of the Mississippi as the heart or the aorta or the, I don't know, the aorta of the North America. The main vein.
Are there any other inputs that we might add to this list?
Well, I'm looking at Grace Vince. I'm just thinking that tree could be all sorts of tributary rivers coming. This is what I meant.
I'm going to the sky. It's like the cloud rain cycle. True, and in trees and plants.
In streets and lawns and gardens and where the water flows.
Sewers.
What about the aquifers
Ground, yeah.
in the groundwater?
Cranberry bottles.
The location is one way to think about our connection with Mississippi and where it is in our daily lives. And I think it's really interesting to ask this question in a building that to me doesn't always feel, of like many office buildings and many like, and even apartment buildings that won't feel disconnected from the watershed, but actually this indoor environment that we're in is just as much a part of the watershed as the banks of the main channel of the river that we're going to be at this afternoon. So I'm curious how we can feel connected here to Mississippi, because all of the water that we're drinking and using here is also coming from the river, and it's going to go back to the river really directly through the treatment and wastewater treatment. Another way that I think of connection to Mississippi is through story and family story. I know in my family, our connection with Mississippi begins with my ancestors who came here in the 1850s as part of the settler colonial project, and they forested and farmed and created a town in northwestern Iowa on the East Des Moines River, which then flows into the Mississippi River. So we've been here for about 200 years, and my family line has been here for really the 200 years that European industrialized civilization has changed the landscape through land use. So that's one of the ways that I think about Are there other connections that anyone feels here that you'd like to speak into the space before we start to record?
Sunday mornings at Hidden Falls, there's a water ceremony. And so I'm picturing that circle of prayer and song as I'm sitting here. Nine o'clock.
Look at public utilities and ways that we're connected in terms of like how we use water or stuff. And I think the thought crossed my mind, like it's in my garden, though. It's in our rain barrels. It's in, if I put it in a water bottle, I carry it.
Like that image of carrying it with you, your water bottle. Well, you all are welcome to begin creating. If you have any questions, come check in with me. Feel free to move around the space, to open drawers, to look for materials. Really, almost everything in this room is for us to use. In about 16 minutes before the end of our time, I'll call us back together to do a little sharing. We are done at 11:45, but we have about 35 minutes. About 35 minutes for art. And you can make art by yourself. You also could create with other people. This is the artwork. Here. Watch that.
I know, I like that. But I didn't. I want this for one. Right, like I don't know. Yeah, I know, I like it better, but I. There's like. I haven't changed my mind. She does this, I don't like it. And then, you know, but it's not, they're not.
Yeah.
I don't think I can reach out. I guess I need to making something.
And then I got it.
Yeah, but. I know, I don't even know what I thought of everybody.
It'd be like
That is not, and I'm actually gonna unmove it so that
That's not the way to put it over. That area.
All right.
Prairie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Season 1, you sends me to like the real. But you know, we media. And they also like we call them what we call this is number 5, 5. It's a don't even they have to have those part of
I don't need it, but I don't want it.
I think there's. I don't need. If I can find you. What kind of? Yeah, trying to bucket.
I mean, that's no matter why. No, I was.
I can like.
Oh my Thank you. Did you get everything? I mean, I'm so. Yeah. I was-
Oh, good. Yeah.
I don't think I would have gotten the kind of size.
Yeah, I think it does.
My prayer, but I love to say her. Well, like, really.
Yes, but-
If I. That's great.
I'm paranoid or like. Like, oh, today's gonna be bad or.
You know, I'm just, that makes you like changing when you're not this.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't do it for like putting on a lot of makeup.
I mean, definitely. Maybe actually. Music and.
You know, but it's.
Yeah. No, I think it's like, oh.
Let's do things.
It's not like a great, but yeah.
Right after.
Not.
It sounds fun, but maybe not for the. Yeah. It was just us. Yeah.
You know what, I am just not. I mean, if there is something that will be on me.
Oh, were you?
Oh, awesome.
No. I like.
Yeah, I think it is. Love when
Anyways, first chapter.
What you want to heart?
I'm not in college.
Gotcha.
Right, but that happens, you know, my friend is.
Do we want more? Because I have something to do that, or do we want to?
No,
She's already.
Yeah, we need to go there. Let's see if they're gonna.
Yeah. Like I appreciate. Members of the state.
So much.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I know, I was just like, oh, I'm typing.
Yes, yes.
And I know you're reading. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you guys see that.
right.
We had this person speak like one month down. Yeah.
Even more.
Yeah, always, you know, those are just like,
So anyway.
Yeah.
I think that-
Well, it's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those-
Yeah.
Well, I did,
Yeah, I know.
There's those surveys.
Yeah. That's an I is as opposed to an I and out.
That's right.
Figure out who wears my semester. Sorry, where's my? See, I actually read. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I tried to like reshare and it was like.
You're in this.
And New Testament. Yeah. Was like looking at United, I sat on one of your classes.
That's why you.
Really. I was like. Yeah, I know. Exactly. You were.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll say.
Not all of it, but.
I've one word, I should like it, right? I want to see my ears, but it's very. Something like.
We're actually doing knowledge. Are you now?
I am, but.
So you do more than one, more than Christian.
I like that.
I wonder about the individual focus. You're the new or.
Yeah. In terms of like. The program. I don't know if I. Oh, you know, it's still good choose.
I think it's wonderful.
Well, it's still to take one more. Yeah, taking both of the Bible.
Oh, and I didn't have to,
That's,
you know.
the gospel. I only know it's in there.
No, it didn't let me. I don't. Just to be in response. In my mind, this was like. I said, it might be 5 years.
Yeah, she won't.
Yeah, Ricky thing is, you know.
In 2020.
I'm sure it does.
Yes,
Don't know.
just.
The Bible's brand.
Yeah. It's like. Oops, in addition.
I'm gonna offer a brief.
Oh, yeah.
And to say that this is a welcome conversation debate.
Oh, I'm not.
And it's a conversation focused on what we're doing together, and so a field conversation that's more about. Catching up, let's let that happen after this event, so we're talking with each other, but talking really about the river and our own creation. Thank you.
We were in that right in the middle of that.
Yeah. You read parable
Oh, that's like only in the writing and the so you'd be like trying on everybody else. That's what yeah, but I feel like, yeah, but yeah, I don't think it's water. Yeah, but it's true. Yeah, I was having this spiral. I guess I needed some. Yeah, and they're all springing. And then you want to like this. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, but I think. This is all. Oh.
I heard mine. Yes. Yeah.
So you're looking at.
We're in this. Yeah, lots of. We started off with, that's good.
Don't give me this. I might think
Sorry. Yeah. Here.
How long is your carry?
Was it Prairie?
Growing, oh, the one that's sort of nearby. The one that's nearby. Oh, yeah, Prairie State Park. No, it's just the Crow River. It joins in at like day 2.
That's more than like kind of if you were up in the northwest metro area, right? It's it's kind of close.
Yeah, it's like a half-hour drive. Oh, okay.
I think I've ever been on that bike.
Very easy to go. It's a good, yeah. I'm really wanting the slow shower. Very slow, very shallow. Yeah, they just make sure you go and like now is bad. It's pretty so low that I mean, just there. They're not. really navigate.
Coming in.
Just in the box. Oh, you go back. Well, at the end of August.
Oh, we didn't have, our committee that had 3 people in it.
Then they thought us out through that. So I only had singles and kayaks to do it. Oh, if you were, I actually like. Although it's. Kayak did go in.
The idea of.
You used to know.
Yeah.
I think
Craft might have last. There's another kind of.
Very industrial.
Like.
Yeah, no, it's very honestly, very, we had, I thought.
It's like, I mean, somebody.
Yeah.
In terms of like.
I remember loving my class.
Some folks it's recreation, some folks.
Oh, are you? No. It's just, I was like, oh. That doesn't happen. That remark.
It's so fun. This is what we don't like. I think it's a book. I like to learn.
You have about 10 more minutes of art making. But because after the container of the workshop, there will be lunch and this will be an open space. So, and I'll leave stuff out. So if you want, to keep reading, you can.
Like, well, literally all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
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 You're creating now. I mean, that.
Yeah, it's been traveling around for a while. I went to Minneapolis.
Yeah, I see everything, everything is.
Oh, yeah. Just.
Yeah, when I was working.
Like.
Yeah, that was like then.
So it's easy to lose.
How many things have you
Out.
heard?
Folks a lot of different scarcity as opposed to out west. But that's just for your thing usage.
That's a good point, 'cause I when I think about scarcity, I'm like, okay, and it's like.
Yeah.
Still.
And when he has like a world class treat. Actually, they run through, so you have. We have. It's some of the like bonus factories.
We ran out. It's like.
They need is.
It's pretty.
It's.
Yeah.
Well, and then it's one of those things which gets confusing too. So, like, that's like a correlated like a single out. Yeah, I'm.
Yeah, and it's. That's why I did like that. And you're not making decisions.
There's a watercolor, the work that there are pastel in one of the. That's what I.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You don't want every.
Open area where people can learn it, but then there's like trails. But I wanted to.
It's the same color. There's your next, I think, 30 pairs of them. Now, and then off of. Yeah. Security. Same picture, okay, rather, it's other here begin with, and those come into like something like the. So if you're ever in like, but I'm thinking, we just like, I think the.
Yeah.
The short cell.
We got about 5 more minutes. Just before we do some reflection together, you can keep thinking. Right, and out.
It's like a. I mean, walk through and like what happened with it. I love it.
He was there for the first year and year. But he over. Yes. Yeah, he was. He was.
I didn't know.
I'm thinking of the river, if they were allowed to blood and have more space.
Very similar.
Different ways it, but I know it's, or was.
Yeah, like I just the ways that we change this down, so.
I thought we didn't just bury her in.
Yeah.
Like, is it like the river was all the places that had been, it's quite amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What's, tell me the name of it.
Like, these are just for the.
Oh, did you?
Go for it.
I was.
That's so serious.
I think I wait for it.
So you don't do another. I found them, I found them in the Arctic actually. Like I didn't even.
You get these tinier. When it was which.
It's like a music center.
Oh, that's.
I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
It's in there right now.
I can walk on her.
I also want to ask you, she liked that kid. They're not like things that.
All right, it is a time to find a place where you can focus your attention on a group conversation. So if you can hear my voice, raise your hand. I'm deeply influenced by my time in a preschool.
I just.
Are we supposed to raise our hand if we're actually going to speak?
Yeah.
Willing to respond.
We have time for about 2 people to share their piece. If someone would like to share, hold up what you made and just share what you're thinking about, what your piece represents.
I'll go. I made this braided wristband. I was very influenced by this idea of the tributaries kind of coming together in the watershed. But then I was also really inspired by like, how do I remember the Mississippi with me like throughout my day? So I'm hoping that this will be a good reminder.
Maybe everybody.
Is there anyone else who'd like to hold up what they're working on and talk about it a little bit?
Sure, I can read it. I'm not done yet, but I was trying to just thinking of like the view from a plane and all the farm fields, so it's like a base of just what the river flows through on the landscape.
I love to use from.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Or probably.
Birds out here.
Yes, a hot air balloon, a bird, yes. Cool.
The eagle.
Is there anyone else who'd like to share?
I'd like to thank you.
I want some of these meetings to share.
Go ahead, Pam.
Those of us who were in the ritual session, I talked about how the things going into the river, we usually think of as like pollutants and all the things like by the time you get from Itasca all the way down to Louisiana, it's like not a great feeling body. And so in this morning, I've had the thought of like, well, what if we reverse that? What if we put in positive things and energy? And so I have things going into or questions, I guess, it's sort of a similar sort of bracelet idea of like prayer bracelets. You can go and think about each of the things and work with it as a prayer tool.
We now have an opportunity for everyone to share with the group something you're bringing with you out of this. There's an opportunity to share in a couple of words what you're bringing out of this event into the rest of the day. And it could be an emotion, it could be a question, or a little point of inspiration. But everyone has an opportunity to say what you're bringing with you. And I'll start. And I'll say, open community, a collaborative process.
I'll put the two together, I know, that water's flowing and changing, so.
I'm thinking about your question, what are my gifts to the Mississippi? And I can really easily name what the Mississippi's gifts are to me, but I need to think more about what are my gifts. Like thinking of this as like a reciprocal relationship.
Question was, how does my body connect to this? I'm trying to think of rust. The fluids. Within the world. Like being nourished. I'm staying. In a life.
I identified with home and community, and mine was how does it feel to allow the Mississippi to support me? It's that sense of something bigger than us that supports us, which is also how we both come to.
Well, I want to express my gratitude and my thanks for all of you being here and engaging in this activity together. It's really a workshop that's made by the group of us together. So I'm really grateful for all of your energy and contributions and just your presence here. And I'll offer everyone to just stretch out your arms, take a stretch. And look around the room, maybe look at each other, you don't have to. And then wrap your arms around yourself, give yourself pretty good power. Thank you so much, and I wish for you all a really fun day.
Thank you.
Lunch is going to be served shortly outside, so that's available. And the space will continue to be open probably until about 12:30. And then I'll start putting things away so we can get ready to go to the river at 1. Yeah, and
If you're biking down, the extra box that was here is to like trick out your bike.
oh, cool. Oh, so this box that I did was here, but
Yeah.
you have your bike decoration, so I'll bring it up.
Oh,
You know those little flowers that are in there? Those are a project that Love did, the prayers for the Mississippi. Oh, wow. And so the fact that they're in that box and going to this today is like.
Yeah.
These are.
You organize like the art that gets put on the wall and bothered me, so but I don't now I really answer all of my previous streams that go that like try to talk on we just noticed it changed again. Oh, there's not.
Go back to the bike. I did try short ones. Yeah, that, I don't.
It helps when it's kind of like.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know how it is undergrad. Like,
Challenger is a name.
Like, you can't think about it. Like, I'm practicing that shape. It's very.
There are students who
Yeah.
off campus and into the community. Yeah, and her story was just like so random. It was like, yeah, it's just. I was not sure what really. If I did ever go that route. The first place I could, is, so I was like 2000. I like first learned about.
In the mix,
Yeah.
like mixed.
She. corporate finance bank with a well part of their long time and you have this like inflected point. We talked about James got second like. But it's like, there's something different. And like a lot of undergraduates, I was just having existential moment. I was on a little tour in Central Hillside. It's like something to do. But it took about 12 years or 15 years or whatever. Well, but yeah, like experiences.
And then like.
It came to the inspiration of like actually puts to.
I haven't been able to come to the thing, but it is well. It's like in my calendar.
These experiences. You something to them out.
It's a lot of good. And at best we could. I just appreciate all of it. Oh, great.
Yeah. I wanted to job and I was previously in associations. I
Enjoy the rest of your.
and we got the chat and see really cool.
Yeah.
Then I did my CPE and it was like, you cannot figure in the. If you ever want to work in the hospital, that's what you do. I was like, okay. Innovation has a list of all that's
Just like, people are very.
specifically on the list. I have ones that have either specific classes.
So this afternoon,
I love going to have United is one of like. It's pretty narrow.
Yeah, right.
So,
The river pit, actually.
yeah, and then in my city, one of my people was also at United a lot.
Okay.
And, oh, yeah.
Actually,
I'm not just.
That pretty cool. That the way that is right now.
I don't know how you glue it exactly, but that looks.
I'm gonna drag it in there and put on
That,
That's so
that
amazing.
is brilliant. Yeah.
So.
Beth, did you paint that?
Great. And I go to Lutheran Church, but I don't. I'm not actually.
I'm getting red.
Okay. Yeah, and I just.
That's what I get.
It's like, I don't agree, but I.
That's perfect.
And then we don't.
I don't see that.
You had some before, then you had.
Oh, no, why did he? Because I just had to pass it.
Well, then I have to bring from it again. Many flavors of.
I like.
Like, every time there's housing, you change, right?
Yeah.
But I have some we don't have it.
Yeah, that's my.
You're talking about.
And bunch of very. Which also. Actually.
In one go.
I really like lunch.
Oh, yeah, that's
Definitely.
hoping that they.
Oh, yeah, it's hard.
My husband was like.
That's on the glitter though. It does not directly affect.
No, but
it is.
but you had a reason, it's on.
Yeah, yeah, it's a master of legal justice. You know, if this is essentially what I would like to do. And so it's a way to, it's what I really want to know. As I start to think about what is the. And I'm thinking a little bit about that. Because the degree, everything.
I'm all over, do whatever it is.
That's after B, like, when you started, you're like sneaking.
When I was doing the math.
No, that would be an active one. Oh, it'd be another year, but I'm also essentially.
Okay, so that's an option that you decide you want to go.
Yeah, I did. I just don't know who I would want to be ordained by. And, you know,
Well,
right, so then I'm like, is that what I'm going to do? But I know that I want to work in.
We're happy.
I'm gonna do where I can talk
That's
about it.
Just so you know.
yeah.
Right, and that's changing.
I have a lot
What
of
I'm
them.
finding is.
And one of my favorite is more time, one that's just like this one stuff.
I do, it's absolutely decided it's pretty well. My turn to be right. I was talking about what they said earlier. Grad school as. You know, like, do I want to suffer in that? I did until I was 30 and then I didn't. So you did her something very young. Yeah, I did separate. Well, yeah. Yeah,
You was okay.
Well, he did not play as your spring.
Actually, I feel like when I started as a grad student, and I realized, oh.
And I just thought
We're doing a program.
Yeah, I mean.
And space and I don't like.
Energized.
Yeah, I'm happy.
A lot.
Longer than I did.
It's very much is not sitting on.
So continuing school, that's a lot of continuous
So
school
interesting.
during a.
I mean, they go. I'm not trying here. I mean,
Friends for you.
Then also, maybe I'll need another.
You know, it's been job. If I just imagine. it,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not glad it's a pandemic, but I'm happy.
This is all probably like. And I'm not making that I.
We're just telling
Get
everyone.
very angry. So I was like, I don't know what to do or how. I don't know where it's going to start, but. Yeah, how water.
Exciting for me to hear.
So that you're vibrating with your son and your space going right, like we want to see it around us.
Anything has.
Yeah, I mean, we have to go wall.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not.
Not
Yeah.
And
You know, I just, I got, yeah.
it's dead. But eating health.
Yeah.
I love that you're probably.
Like very. I don't really know why.
So Rebecca's my partner, I don't know if you have that. So Rebecca's other partner. is a professional user.
Yeah, so let's be treasure they didn't have in her lives.
Heather,
And here's the.
you can do that name.
My
I know that one.
Yeah.
I know that like really begins when you think about.
Oh,
or in my class.
Yeah.
And that's what we do now. I get the emails.
There's we are meeting with the gallery and there's been a.
Where did you say?
I don't know. I'll find out. I'll look on my phone because I have it into it.
That is some really big over.
Yeah. We were meeting out of the salary somewhere.
Okay, I don't know, like I said, like a gallery's name, but you just said it.
Yeah. Fill up, and I haven't seen it for a lot of. And what's interesting on the street.
I'm sure it is. Yes.
One, and the main lights and it's like diary. Like, the company there. pattern.
I feel like I think she comes out.
Yeah, it's still, that's.
High school party.
It's very.
In the most hopeful way.
I'm feeling this is what my.
Yeah, that's also, yeah, that's really.
Yeah, but I think.
My brother's spouse is pregnant right now and they're due date in October.
Yeah.
And she's in her, in the second trimester. But she,
Oh, what are we doing? Saying this. I don't really love grading. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's gonna create my arms. Right,
right.
That's very.
yeah, yeah, they like timed it, they did a ship travel.
Data,
My brother-
done.
Oh, are you going to Scotland?
Cancel it. No, right.
Right, but then you're like, well, it's gonna be.
It was rough. Anyway, so, but he's very.
I mean, I imagine it was like, it's fun, I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of like a lot of people say they put this, but all of them. It's not.
Yeah, we did like.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's nice.
But it is also cool.
It's like everyone had babies.
Oh, you're in company.
So he's staying there and then he's like, oh, do better, like this is my life.
You're pregnant.
Yeah.
A lot of.
Some people have come to play, like, you know, you can say, oh, as a parent, it's like a certain type of organ that's. If you're a desire, certain organs.
Like, I think these black people, because we like normally teach me stuff, it's like that. I got to be nice.
And I'm like, no, I guess, you know, Charles like the art and somebody.
Just got to know that he's the head of the Greek Orthodox Church.
So like, currently a lot.
Currently like 9 but sometimes. And he's called the green teacher. He's the person who basically. Previous one. Would be like,
Wait,
who's thinking about climate change. Now Paul too, but now the current.
Number one.
Yeah, isn't your thing.
Yeah, I think Benedict was.
It takes a long time to already.
Yeah.
So, we'll come call the second. Dog. And then it was.
Yeah, I think Benedict, okay, that's helpful.
I only really.
Our one pastor especially will give you the biggest house of bread to go one of them.
You know what I'm really like?
Thrilled.
And I'm
happy.
Yeah.
You that age, like you just got,
He's the first person in community.
everything was so legit. You're like.
And so he pressured the pulpit to make several joint statements. That have also happened. Like he does the water symposiums, the water symposiums that he's been doing since the 90s. And he does them around major bodies of water and brings kind of, they're called religion and science, religion, science, and science. So he also scientists and people together and indigenous people. He also uses
Very.
but he did one on the Mississippi.
One of the things I love to do is in these books, it's like, go ask an adult in your church about this. All every time you love because. We're engaged, right?
I don't tell you about doing those.
The other
I love wizards.
Yeah, I should just do that.
I'm here. No, I'm here. I actually started. We have
We're gonna have one more recently, one of my mom's. You know, like I'm very like that. And the person that was in the child that brought us. Straight, I mean, you know, it's like. It looks very similar to. Oh, what was it called? Canvas, because it's like.
Sir, are you taking off? No, I was just trying to bundle them.
I love it. Oh,
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
That was there.
was thinking, I think along similar lines as Amanda, that maybe more zoomed in on one,
That's so cool.
zoomed in on 140-acre plot.
It's very, and then I do.
I would love to see what you made.
In addition to create it together, yeah.
This year. So we should. So these are like the way which I know it's hard and it's fun. Mostly after being here for 20 years observation. And then I just want something on that, you know. You know, it's already rough, but I love it. You know, what, I don't even. It has the time that I mean,
Got it. I was just like. I'd love to. I only got part.
Yeah,
I'm gonna fill out that. But I graded the river and then tried to create a representation of where.
There's really bad. This is one, but through do you I know you did yeah. I think that can have like a team student leadership.
I know, but I knew it was.
It's like, I'm like, student going through some sit on all of them. It's kind of. Well, I think there's like 10 iterations that used to be like, student room leader or not. People that there. How is it that's so
Fun to do it, not with people.
like the slideshow, everybody like, you know, they don't even know how to play it. How much you really did, and I love that. I think it's all.
You like it now?
I knew all these things. It's really proud, but. So family dinners on Sunday nights. I've enjoyed it too.
Great to see it unfold more.
Yeah.
Yeah, originally I was given 90 minutes and then I got changed.
Oh.
So that was.
That
And
was.
then it was okay. Well, I was like.
It's like I want to so badly, but it's just like, even before today.
Yeah, I do.
So it's like.
I was like, oh, I could do something.
I love that.
Yeah, I know, my struggle.
Great
You could also like incorporate elements of like collaboration or.
I love it.
How good I am collaboration.
Yeah.
Flash.
Thank you so much. I did it very much. Yeah.
No, so that was the topic.
It really, I got another box.
It's not easy.
So I just. wrapped
Yeah, I
around
think that's
it.
nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't have, that's when it was off.
Is it just go to?
Yes.
No.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
But then like.
Breaks or after class.
Or-
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think.
Can I?
I talk about a lot of things.
Like, you know, what, did you ever do like post studying in person? Like when?
Yeah, pretty
United.
rarely, but yeah, it was more in like finals time.
Yeah, so like when I do my notes, and part of the moms was.
I'm gonna go.
Yeah, that's.
I'm gonna go. eat and then come back.
I mean, everything that we are also trying to figure out how to like, it's this travel thing.
More
People, right,
If you just like abandon plans to do art, it's like.
know how to like.
Totally.
Or on to graduate or whatever. There's somebody that.
Yeah, it would be fast, but yeah, I was. I'm getting extremely hard to speak on it.
I mean, I think I'm fine doing that.
No, it can't be a disbursement or reimbursement.
Yeah.
This way.
I have the, okay.
Yeah.
I know it's gonna be like. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that. We are working on, this is where we like to like. And I don't know if you understand. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so like, that's good. That's
Bella used to know who cared, I used to do that.
That's good. We can only do it without you, but I feel that's where every year, and it was like, welcome and. Reverend Karen, we do like, it was an hour a day, it was kind of the same thing, it was like, just, you know. Was it more like just get to know? Like,
It's like a rally Sunday in the city.
Rally Sunday? Yeah. It was cool. Yeah.
Like Friday, over the top if you want, but it, you know.
Not
And in that, yes, we did, I mean, you can, the summer, so it was like you're coming.
Oh, yes. But it also was like.
Yeah, I was like.